Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. It's that time of the week again. We've got a bunch of stuff to jump into, but first, as I promised, the first episode of our game development show is live, and it's live right now. You can also win a slice of the game for yourself. We are giving away prints of our first full monster. It's a physical item that I will sign and mail to you worldwide, so check out the description for the giveaway link, and hit up our YouTube channel, which is linked down below. And of course that episode, you can just go watch it now or after this video. Today's episode is also sponsored by the good people at audible.com, where you can get a free copy of Before the Storm, the tie-in novel to Battle for Azeroth, and it gives you a first-person account from Anduin and Sylvanas, and you can also check out that down in the description box, which is a pretty busy place this week. But okay, let's get right into the news. This is a bit of a quick update. So, Uther has received a new statue to go along with his revamped tomb. This is continued evidence that something is going on here with Blizzard. They have been kind of tight-lipped about it, but it's not like they'd revamp it for nothing. One thing that is interesting is there's a bunch of light seals and there's a locked door, so that's a bit of a mystery. And overall, I'm just taking this to be maybe a hint that something is going to happen to do with Uther as time goes on. So earlier this week, WeCore reported that addons will not be able to create Premade Group Finder groups in BFA. The default UI still works, but the quick join button has been removed, as has the hyper-smooth add-on-driven experience of WQGF. And yeah, there's no doubt that this is going to cause a pretty large burst of negative player feedback, and it's really easy to see why. This feature allowed for us to essentially get free loot for barely playing the game. Why do a world quest yourself when you can fly in, hit a button, whack 2 mobs, and boom, job done? Why do an invasion point with 3 people when you can do it with 40 so that it's pretty much instant? Then, for people who are farming, well, easy realm switching add-ons made it possible, super easy even, to do a whole bunch of farms a lot faster. So it makes sense why this is something that was super popular. It's something I used all the time throughout Legion. I recommended it. And, I thought that stuff, it was good for people to use. It was in my videos. So it's understandable why the initial feeling to this change might be a negative one. But I think we do have to dive deeper and talk about the game design that's really behind all this. There's no way in which it is an example of good game design. Imagine in Witcher, Geralt hitting a button to summon in 5 other Geralts to do a quest for him. Hell, for a WoW example, imagine in regular questing, but every time you do a quest, you hit a button and a group appears and does all the objective instantly. We can understand that this is time efficient, but it's also bad game design, which kind of makes sense. It arose as a convenience gain from a system that Blizzard implemented, and it wasn't really a way that they overtly designed to play the game. So I think we've established this stuff is convenient as hell, so that kind of begs the question, why are we all so keen to skip out the content of World of Warcraft? And this is the tough bit to face. Most of the WoW content's not intrinsically fun. World quests, they're not fun, they're work. They are often just repeating quests that you've already done. Now, compare a regular quest encounter from another RPG to doing a world quest in WoW. WoW doesn't really win there, and there's a few reasons why. WoW's combat mechanics, they're primarily designed for dungeon and raid content. Blizzard are the king of that. WoW outdoor content provides no challenge. Mobs have no real mechanics to speak of, at least not ones that matter, and that's an area where they seem to have peaked with the Timeless Isle and kind of slipped backwards with since. This means that the outdoor world content really has nothing engaging to it, but the reward systems of the game incentivize us to do them. This means that players treat it purely as a means to an end, meaning that anything that increases the efficiency is a good thing. So, World Quest Group Finder exists to let us play the bad content less, or do it faster at least, so that we can skip ahead to the good stuff, which is where WoW shines. So Blizzard killing World Quest Group Finder and not allowing add-ons to do this is understandable, but it does bring into focus how their world content is rather lacking, I would say both in absolute and relative terms. Now, I can't just shit in this whole thing without offering solutions though. So the unique thing that WoW has is a world and players. So the way to create excellent world content is through systems, not through throwing loads of static quests at the problem. If the world has player-driven systems where your actions matter, well, that is more in line with the strengths of an MMORPG. Basically, I would always advocate for bringing a bit of the sandbox into the theme park. War mode isn't a fantastic example of this being done, but so far it's only a small step. And when we look back at the expansions, Warlords of Draenor created a raid system that's going to last long into the future. Legion reinvented the role removal of the dungeon in World of Warcraft, and then it also repackaged existing daily quests into a different system, but it didn't really change the core issues. Battle for Azeroth sadly does not innovate on world content. However, by shifting the AP grind away from world quests and towards island expeditions, they do help themselves because expeditions are so much better and so much more suited to World of Warcraft's gameplay. Them taking some of the role of the AP grind really does help out with this expansion, which I suppose is the good news. But still, world quests, I think they could do a little bit better. Next up, we've got Bear Tartar and the Fun Police. So I've got some deeply, deeply tragic news. Bear Tartar is being nerfed in BFA. This glorious, glorious snack would fill you with the energy of the gods upon killing an enemy, increasing your movement speed by an epic 70%. Well, sadly in BFA, they are making it give you some speed, enough to translate to about 20% run speed. So it's a bit tragic. Now, for context, it was used for speedrunning old content. You could one-shot nearly everything, which meant that keeping the buff going really long would mean you could clear the content incredibly fast. Now, of course, it was also just nice to use out in regular world content, especially if you were leveling. And you know, it does feel like a bit of a fun police move to me, to be honest. This wasn't really hurting everyone or anyone, and more importantly, it had no real impact on the wider game loop. It's not really tangled in with the broad game design of WoW, like with the Group Finder stuff that we talked about. So yeah, I'm a little bit sad. Next, the Darkshore Drama. Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Moral Compass, a weekly show where we analyze the moral decency of an undead elf lady and a good wholesome boy.
Be gone, witch!
The most recent build of the PTR has included the Horde campaign in Darkshore, and something rather odd is happening. Okay, no major spoilers, but basically the Horde and Alliance have a bit of a tussle in Darkshore, but the inclusion of the Horde campaign recently has left many, including the red shirt guy, a little bit confused. The quest lines don't line up, as in the events are literally different, it would seem. The Horde one, as an example, has you dueling Furbolg chieftains to gain passage to their lands. However, the Alliance one turns out, oh, the Horde have enslaved the Furbolgs and you have to kill them. There's other inconsistencies here in players' actions to the point where the quests are like following different versions of events, and this has sparked some discussion. Some say it's a conspiracy. Someone is framing the Horde, i.e. someone went to Astronar, executed civilians, and blighted it before the Alliance arrived, which is something that the Horde player doesn't do. So, you know, like a setup. Now, that's a cool idea, but I'm not really sure. Although something is almost certainly going to happen with Teldrassil that's weird, so maybe the idea of third-party interference is not that absurd. But aside from that, this has also massively fed into the narrative of the Alliance being the good guys and the Horde being the bad guys. The whole sarcastic, morally grey thing that you might have seen being thrown around recently. Now, I totally get it. From the Alliance point of view, the Horde seem really, really, really evil, while the Alliance kind of seem like moral paragons. And then from the Horde side, you know what? The Alliance just seem like the enemy. They don't seem that evil. They're just not in line with Horde interests. So yeah, it does make it feel like we're verging on a good versus bad storyline. Now, this could go a few ways. It could be a bit of a stretch, but it could be Blizzard trying to display how the Horde and Alliance just perceive each other being different, the perceptions being larger than the difference in reality, basically playing with the player's perspective, a bit like with how they edited the Alliance and the Horde versions of the Broken Shore cinematic. The problem here, though, is that this runs into the problem of, well, the events, they actually seem incompatibly different to each other. Now, the other explanation is that the Horde version is just newer, and it's a more iterated version over the Alliance one, and maybe the updated Alliance one will appear in the PTR soon. One thing is for sure, though, we do know that Blizzard are going to be attempting to play with the player's perspective when it comes to the burning of Teldrassil and sowing mystery there. They've definitely been sort of teasing that. So yeah, it's a very interesting time to keep up with WoW lore, and if you have been keeping up with this Darkshore stuff specifically, I'd love to hear what you think about the direction that they're going in with these two quest lines, because right now, I will admit, it seems a bit bizarre to me. Next, let's go for something a little bit lighter. The Dark Iron Dwarf Mole Machine. It's been data mined, and it is amazing. It flat out is just an extra teleport, either to Ironforge or Stormwind currently. It looks pretty cool. We don't know if it's going to be something that will be changed by launch or added to, but yeah, it's super happy for getting around the world fast. It's a good little bit of news, so I thought I'd share it. And with that covered, it's time to talk about the War Effort Research. So this is the tech tree. It operates similarly to the Order Hall upgrades that we saw in Legion, and yeah, let's just go through it. Tier Tier 1 gives you the choice between a 50% reduced Hearthstone cooldown in Tartar or Zandalar, and a 20% mount speed buff for the next 5 minutes after you leave a flight point. Pretty sure I'm going to be going for the first one. Then Tier 2 is all about troops. You choose between either instant recruitment times or a larger troop capacity. Tier 3 is about island expeditions. You can either increase the amount of expedition currency that you earn by 20% or increase the duration of the effects from the expedition buff shrines by 20%. Then Tier 4 is actually super interesting, so you can either get the chance of additional Azeroth from world quests, or you can get an upgraded Flight Master's whistle that teleports you back to your faction's hub city, either Kulturas or Zandalar one, if you use the whistle while you're already at a Flight Master. So in some cases, it's like an instant hearth. It's kind of interesting. Then Tier 5 is all about Warfronts. You can either get a 15% bonus to resource gathering or a 15% buff to the strength of nearby Warfront troops. Then our final tier is currently a buff to war resource gains from emissary caches. So look, it's not a massive system, and thankfully it doesn't time-gate any expansion functionality, like say the ability to wield 2 legendaries from Legion. The quality of life stuff is pretty nice, the buffs are a little bit incidental, it's a kind of take it or leave it thing really. But for the people who enjoy clearing old stuff, I do have some good news actually. So this is about the legacy loot mode. So there is a bit of a worry that with the removal of master loot, it would mean proportional loot for old content. So you would go into a raid and you would get loot scaled, for you as 1 out of 20 players instead of the full raid worth of loot. Well, the good news is that the new legacy loot mode largely solves this. It will give you the personal loot equivalent of what the raid normally would have dropped for an entire group on master loot. So farming old raids is safe from those BFA changes, and if you want to learn more, I recommend checking out Hazel's video on it. And next, let's talk about user interface, the sexiest of topics. First, we've got the new login screen. It's pretty cool, so get used to looking at it for the next 2 years. The UI for Warfront selection is also in, as is the UI for Island Expeditions, and it's pretty nice because as you can see, on a weekly basis, you get a roster of 3 different expedition locations. These change weekly, which should help to keep things feeling fresh over time, and you can also see the weekly quest UI be there, which that weekly quest is one of the most efficient ways to get artifact power in Battle for Azeroth as a whole. Next up, bonus rolls. So bonus rolls are being changed a little bit in BFA. You're going to get less of them, only 2 instead of 3, but they're going to be a little bit more expensive, which kind of makes me wonder, are these tuned to have a higher drop rate? At any rate, they have been implemented on beta, and you actually now also have the ability to use them, use your bonus roll at the end of a Mythic Plus dungeon, which of course gives you a shot at something from that dungeon's loot table. So there you go, that's pretty much the news of the week, and a few small changes, but ones that have really big consequences, like with World Quest Group Finder, which it really has been a cornerstone of Legion gameplay since the beginning. So I'm definitely super keen to hear what you've got to say about that. Now, I'm entering production for the class review series. You're going to see that trickling out next week. And then I'd also love it if you checked out the game development series over on the game development channel. We are putting a bunch of thought into how we can present that in a way that is approachable and fast and sort of brings you along on the journey of developing a game with us. Then, of course, we've got the June prints over on Patreon, which are over here. These look incredible, and now that we've worked out our packaging, these will be good to ship on the 2nd or 3rd of July. So a massive thanks to the Patreon crew over there. There are channel vlogs, as well as early access to non-news content, and their help has been absolutely tremendous in making this channel better. So thanks to them, thank you to you for watching, and I will see you next time.